Yeah, we have a lot waiting.
That's good.
We had 18 last week. Our goal this week is 20 plus, right? Just gradually.
Yes, sir. And we're live here on the Get Signed and Succeed podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. This is episode number 13, in case you haven't been following along for the last 3 months. I'm Bruce Batchley, and thankfully, I've got my buddies Craig Cox and Andrew Cohen on with me tonight. Guys, how we doing?
We're doing good. There's like a delayed sound though in the background, but thanks.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks,
sorry. I always
I'm
want to make
blessed.
sure.
Thank you very much.
I always want to make sure that we've got our sound going on the live stream. So usually a little tape delay action there. But I'll tell you what, episode 13, I mean, let's just take, obviously the topic tonight is Twitter do's and don'ts. But the amount of, fun and I think information that we've been able to provide all of the guys out there. And even, we've had female athletes as well kind of take a look at a lot of our topics and look at not only the live streams, but the archived items there too, Craig. I mean, how much fun has it been for you and how fulfilling has it been to really go down this path of the Get Signed and Succeed podcast?
I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and obviously I've known Coach Cohen, but just getting this opportunity to get on here and talk, and I've learned probably as much as anybody who's been listening. I learned a lot in this process from Coach Cohen and from a lot of our guests that we've had on. We've been very fortunate enough to have some FBS coaches and some FCS coaches and D2 coaches. So it's been a very good experience getting an opportunity to learn all these different subjects that we've covered so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew, even for yourself here, obviously with Get Recruited Consulting, and now, 13 weeks into, the Get Signed and Succeed podcast, what are some of your overriding, memories about, how we started this and where we've come during this journey?
Yeah. So, I think the important thing is the three of us are all on the same page. We want to help student athletes and we want to make sure that we educate the families and we give them real information. So, for the audience, every time before the show, we go over the content and we go over, but, Coach Cox and I usually tell Coach Badge, like, we don't want to know too much of what you're going to ask us. We'd rather you kind of just catch us and we'll speak off the cuff. You know what I mean? So, but we're just talking about the basic content. And then after the shows, we always review how it went and what we thought of the topic. And I don't want to say this in an arrogant way, but I think every time we get off we get off the webinar and we talk, whether it's right away that night or within a day or two, we're always saying like, that's some really good information that could really help a family. And I don't think we're trying to tap ourselves on the back. I just think that each show has a different topic and they all are topics that can really help people. And we're never afraid to give real information away. Some people will say like, hey, you don't want to give too much away. And we don't feel that way at all. You know what I mean? And by the way, Coach Barone, Frank Barone, he keeps texting me that he's not getting it, but I'd rather give as much information as we possibly can. You know what I mean? And then from there, if you have questions, that's why we keep telling people like call, text, email. Coach Cox and I did one of those $99 specials last week where it's talking about your son's academics, talking about the film evaluation, level of play, and then we're answering any questions, and we want to do a social media assessment as well. For $99, it's getting a family in the right direction. And then I also believe we're all confident enough and knowledgeable enough that people get off that call and they say, wow, those guys can really help us. So it's definitely been fun. You know what I mean? So hopefully I didn't get too far off the subject, guys.
No, that's exactly what we wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about, this journey that we've been on, and we've had a lot of great comments from everybody, and obviously here's everybody's contact information for Coach Cohen there with Get Recruited Consulting. We always talk about the fact that any question that you have relative to recruiting, Coach Cohen always available to take a call. The same thing with Coach Cox. There's their contact information, right on screen there. Mine is related to if there's a business who's interested in getting involved in podcasting, as both Coach Cox and Coach Cohen are. You go all across, YouTube, and the pervasive attitude is that businesses and companies show their capability and show their knowledge by doing these podcasts and helping people out, and that's a lot what we're doing here with the Get Signed and Succeed podcast with Coach Cohen and Coach Cox and myself, Bruce Badgley.
Could you pull that up one more time?
Sure, I can pull that up one more time.
Part of the website, we talked about all the episodes that we have out here. If you go to my website, 101lifeskills.com, and go to the video section, you'll be able to watch all the other 12 podcasts we've done and any future podcasts as well. And also, there's a button on there for you to ask us anything you want to ask us. There's a button right on the top of the page.
Exactly.
Ask questions, or even recommend future podcasts, because we have one more podcast next week that we've already picked a subject. But after that, that's something we're going to be meeting about probably this week, about what subject are we going to cover in future podcasts. So if you have any questions, or if you think, if you know of a subject that would be really good for these podcasts, make sure you go to my website, go to the video section, and then right at the top of the page, you better click on and give us your info. Let us know what you think.
And that was me, like this afternoon. I mean, it's pouring down rain. There's nothing I can do outside. What do? Hey, I go up and pull up my television, right in my living room, go on YouTube, which is basically just another channel. I search on the Get Signed and Succeed podcast, and whammo, they're all there for me to take a look at and review and enjoy. I have a blast going back and listening to, what we have to say. And this isn't any, pat on the back kind of stuff for us. This is really just good information, good commonsensical information that all of the athletes and families can use in moving forward in trying to play sports at the next level, because it is enormously complex and it's very much of a dance. Okay. And you have to start with certain things build on everything. And a lot of what we talked about throughout this 13 episodes now is involved in, all right, now you've got all of this good information. You've got all of these great highlights. You've got everything that everyone needs to know about, John Smith. So how do you put it out there on Twitter so that the coaches, and 91% of them are out there on social media. Those are statistics from Frank Barone. 91%.
So let me cut you off. So Frank's trying to get in on this right now. So Craig, I don't know if you saw my text. Yeah. I sent it to him and he says he's not getting it. So I gave you his 2 emails if you can send that to him. I don't know if it's the storm or whatever. He says his email's working, but it's it's not working for me.
I'm trying to do that right now.
So sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. And maybe make sure that you're getting in the Zoom link, because that actually brings them into the YouTube. So that might be
the exact email that you gave me.
Okay. All right. Well, we all got it there. Anyway, glad to see you back there, Andrew. But just getting started on this, all of the items that we've talked about, the film, the information about yourself. Now it comes down to Twitter. And, Frank talked about the fact that 91% of these coaches are, online right now doing recruiting.
I mean, that's how the statistics by the NCAA are saying that 91% are finding kids on social media, specifically Twitter. And then they are communicating with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's become a great, obviously the great super highway of recruiting. But if there's something missing from a person's profile, that really hinders a coach finding him. So Andrew, and we obviously we started this discussion earlier this afternoon. Both of you guys have your own kind of pet peeves on what's important for these players to have in their profile. So Andrew, why don't you start? What are the absolute musts that a player has to do to have in their profile so these coaches can find them?
Yeah, so to start, it sounds pretty simple, but I know as a former coach and now a guy helping these people, I find it really frustrating when a young man doesn't spell out everything, like doesn't spell out the name of the high school. Abbreviations, or if I'm not from that area, I'm not going to know that abbreviation, and that can hurt. Make sure you write down the year, whether you're a graduate of 2024, 25, 26, so on and so forth. Make sure you're writing down, your state. So it's your state, spelling things out like the name of the high school. I even have, young men that don't even post their huddle film on the front of their page. And I think that's a mistake. So those are the absolute musts. And then obviously grade point average, height, weight, and their GPA.
And there's the star of the show, Frank Barone from Go MVB. I can honestly say probably the premier tool that I think an athlete can utilize to get themselves out on social media. I'm not going out on too far out on a limb. Frank has done a great job in putting Go MVB together. Frank, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me as always.
Wow, it's great. We just got started here, but we were going through some of the basics, the kind of the pet peeves of, what absolutely a player or any athlete needs to have, on their Twitter profile so that a coach can find them. Why don't you touch on, for you in actually living in that world, what's absolutely, got to be on there?
Yeah, it's a great point. A lot of these young athletes, they like to have nicknames in their handle, right? And Big Dog and number one, and all the different things that they'll put out there. What they don't understand is they're making it more difficult for a college coach to find them, right? At the end of the day, what we tell all of our athletes is, you could be posting until the cows come home. If you are not in a position where a college coach who's sitting on Twitter, or a university that has a department of staff members and or interns that do nothing but scour social media looking for that next diamond in the rough, if they can't identify who you are, there's nothing that's being seen that you're posting. So make sure it's very clear that your first and last name is prominent in your handle, and then that bio, right? There's a limitation on characters that most of the social platforms, Twitter being the most important one, have. So you gotta make sure that you have as much information that's pertinent there. Your name, your position. You want to have your huddle account right in that bio. You want to make sure that if you're a multi-sport athlete, that you have the other sports listed. Very important that bio screams out to college coaches how serious you are about the game, right? So what we find is that college coaches today, they have so much information at their disposal. If you are not, as an athlete, if you are not serving up the information that they need to see in a quick period of time, they are going to very quickly move on to the next athlete. So that bio is so critical, right? And making sure that within that bio, it's easy for them to identify who you are as an athlete. Where are you coming from? What is your year, your graduation year? What is the position that you play? Your height, your weight. If you have any really good measurables, whether it is in terms of height or weight, or maybe it's what you're doing in the weight room or your speed or something that's really a standout, you want to have that very clearly in that bio. It's so important because that's what's going to capture that attention of the college coach who's looking for you, right? You want to get their attention in that first 10 or 20 seconds, and then that'll lead them to the next 30 seconds if they're going to watch a film.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing we talked about as well is, Frank, talk a little bit about the precautions that these athletes need to be taking related to, the use of Twitter and the use of Twitter. I mean, there's so many pitfalls that could be misconstrued by coaches as well. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that that's one of the don'ts that that really is very, very important, that these athletes really need to understand, right?
No, it's again very, very important, Bruce. We talk about the information that they want to make sure they have. If they're missing information, they're going to discourage the coach from continuing to view. Now, one thing that these young men and women have to understand is that social media, it can be your friend, it could be your foe, right? I mean, if you're liking, if you're sharing, if you're commenting on a post that someone else put out there that maybe you find mildly amusing, but is not exactly flattering for your recruitment process, you have to understand that you are putting yourself in the same exact bucket as the person who posted it. And we do see that in many occasions, we are guiding athletes to immediately take down certain posts, not that they put out there, but rather that they shared or they commented on, right? The moment they do that, they're putting themselves in the same boat as the person who actually posted. So you are correct that that they have to be careful, because it actually can get themselves in trouble. I'll give you another one. If a coach is really paying attention, if that athlete has gotten onto the radar screen or the boards of a college coach, and that college coach is now going to watch and going to pay attention to what this athlete is doing, who is the athlete following? Again, if the athlete is following someone that is maybe not going to be very flattering to their recruitment process, they may find themselves on the outside of that coach's interest. So yeah, you got to use this tool properly. You got to serve up the information that they need to see. And at the same time, you have to be aware of what you don't want them to be viewing.
Yeah, it is. I think that, there are so many positives, but the pitfalls of the negatives can be, you have, one misstep, and that could cost you from all of this work that you've used to put together your film, to highlight the fact of what camps you're going to putting out there all of your grades and what have you. One misstep on social media, and news travels fast, and not only from one coach, but we talk about the fact that all of these coaches talk, right, Andrew? I mean, this is this is one where coaches share information, where if one coach may have seen, if they're talking about a player and another coach has said, oh my, I don't know about that guy because I saw this. Talk a little bit about how that really can be adversely affect these athletes, Andrew.
I think it's really interesting. Like it could be a positive or a negative, So college coaches go out on the road, and the good ones are asking the high school coaches questions, not only about their own kids, but about kids that they like in the area. And word can spread, and it can really, really help a kid that other people and other coaches are saying great things about a young man. But it could also happen that one or two coaches can say, hey, we played them and Joe Schmo didn't play hard or didn't do this. And that word spreads. And then these coaches can be interesting that they don't all do the homework, and they should be doing the homework to say, I'm going to make that decision for ourselves. And I think this is a great time to me to talk a little bit about Frank and what they do. So Go MVB and us are, geez, it's getting closer to a year than 6 months now, though, that we started out and we're both good guys that wanted to make sure that the other guy was a good guy. And we've grown immensely in our partnership. But the way we explain it to people, and it really makes a ton of sense. And what that is Go MVB is the macro part of this, and they are posting these kids on social media, which has to be done, and it's getting out there to thousands of people, yes, but thousands of college coaches. So when you're talking about the powers of Go MVB and Get Recruited combined, you're talking about over 125,000 followers and growing. And just by numbers, it's going to tell you there's going to be thousands of coaches. So when we post their information of these student athletes that we help, so many people are seeing it and they're aware of it now. So that's why it's a great partnership, because that's what Go MVB does. They know what to post, when to post, how to post. And then they're also teaching the families how to use social media overall for all sports, but specifically for football. They use it for everything. I mean, it's TikTok and it's Instagram, but everyone knows that for football, Twitter is number one. And so what we wanted to do, though, to be unique and special is say, all right, that's what they do. They're educating and they're getting them all over the place, like insane. And then what I'm doing, I'm following up. Our people are then following up to help develop the student athlete and make sure they're doing things from a physical standpoint and an academic standpoint. And then at the same time, we're not only developing, but we are directly reaching out to these college coaches. So we're calling them and we're texting them and we're messaging them. I don't want to speak out of term here, but I know with both Go MVB and myself, we're getting so much more notoriety that not only if families are reaching out to us, but these college coaches are reaching out to us. Hey, do you know a kid? I need a 23 lineman or a 24 lineman that does A, B, and C. And they're reaching out to us because they know that we give them good players and that we give them players that help their programs. And that's why it's been awesome working with not just Frank, but their staff, whether it's Tracy, who works their butt off, and Ray, and they're great people that care about the student athletes. And when I'm talking to the student athletes, they're telling me, wow, I really just had a great game planning session with Tracy, and we're a team, and I think that's pretty unique in this business. So I can go on and on. I don't want to hog up the show. I'm proud of what we do, but I'm also, we're not a fluff team. We're doing things that we truly believe are going to help the student athletes.
And then full circle, with Coach Cox, with, one life skills and, putting the package together of obviously the promotional and public relations aspect of Go MVB, the relationship aspect for coaches of Coach Cohen, but Coach Cox now, and talk a little bit about obviously how you're teaching people and athletes, the succeed part of it, of what makes people successful, and talk about retention rates of why you're helping these student athletes make good decisions. And it all relates back to, Twitter and social media as well, right, Craig?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole mission behind what I do is I want to help change the percentages, because the retention rates and graduation rates in the U.S. are so bad. I mean, over 1 million college students drop out every year. And a lot of that is they're not prepared for what they're getting into. None of them plan to drop out. None of them do all this hard work, to go to school and drop out. I mean, so my goal is to help get them prepared. So we teach them things that successful people do. And it goes from time management, understanding the importance of making goals, creating positive habits, all those things that successful people do to help align them with where they want to go in their future. So it's coach's job to get them to a college, and it's my job to help them matriculate and graduate.
Yeah, absolutely. And, getting back to obviously Twitter, what are Frank? Do you have any little? And obviously, with Go MVB, I mean, you're the expert on this, but without really, letting out any trade secrets, what are some of the things that you think that you're good at that maybe a lot of people need to get better at related to using Twitter?
Well, I think it starts first off with the concept, Bruce. If you talk to any college coach, and the two gentlemen on the line with us here, they certainly know better than I do, but any college coach I've spoken to, if they're being honest, they're going to tell you that a majority of their job, and some have even said as high as 75, 80%, but certainly a majority of their job and their livelihood is based on their ability to effectively recruit, right? So if we know that that's the case, and we know, by the way, the NCAA has told us that over 90% of college coaches are using social media, Twitter in particular, as football, then if we know there's recruiting through this vehicle, then why not serve up as much information as humanly possible to encourage them to choose that athlete over another high school athlete, over another college athlete who's in the portal? And the way to do that is to make sure that the Twitter presence is clear. As I mentioned before, the bio, your full name, height, weight, position, school you go to, anything particular about your measurables, your film is right up in the bio. The link is in the bio. And then not only is the link in the bio, but your latest and greatest film is pinned to the top of your page. So a coach doesn't have to scroll through a lot of, let's say, dead weight to get to the most pertinent things. And then your film, by the way, college coaches are not overly impressed with the hero stuff. The hero stuff is great. Everybody loves to see a good touchdown, loves to see a good sack, but college coaches want to see the mechanics of the position that the athlete plays. So the film should be somewhat targeted to make sure that the mechanics are displayed properly. Obviously, your best stuff in the first 20 or 30 seconds. We try to coach through every one of these processes. And then obviously, our job is to dive real deep and make sure they understand how to use this vehicle called social media, and Twitter in particular, to their benefit. You should know, as an athlete should know, a parent should know, that if you are on the boards of a college coach, if you're on the watch list because they caught you on Twitter, don't think that they will not jump over to Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat to see what you're up to on those other platforms, because they may find things out from those other platforms that they did not get from Twitter. Most athletes do know that Twitter is, in essence, the equivalent to LinkedIn for athletes, right? But they tend to let their hair down on those other platforms, and that's where an athlete can get themselves in. So we really guide them through the development of the proper content that is going to present who they are as a student athlete in the best capacity, but also how to use social media for their benefit and not find themselves falling into some of the pitfalls that you mentioned about earlier in the conversation.
Yeah, and Go MVB, obviously, across all platforms here. Some of just showing a little bit here about what they do and how they do it. It's pretty incredible. The impression that Frank, that Go MVB left on me very early on, and what it means to an athlete. And I liken it, so many high profile athletes that I've known, a lot of them basically had their parents guiding their social media presence. But Go MVB, the way that you guide that presence, I love it. I mean, I try and I'm on notification for you, so every time that you're sending out a tweet on Twitter, I'm getting notified, and it comes up on my line there. So I see with these same athletes how you're taking these athletes and molding that persona, that online persona. I think it's incredible. I think that it helps out these athletes to eliminate the pitfalls of social media and create that good first impression. And that's the thing too. It's almost like they're sticking their hand out, shaking that coach's hand is what, a Twitter profile is, right?
Let
Yeah.
me add something to that. I'm sorry. Just when he had your page up, I noticed this, and I think Coach Cohen may have mentioned this before. One of the biggest things coaches want to see at the start of your profile is what's your graduation year, because that's, if I'm getting on as a college coach, I'm looking for 2024 guys, or I'm looking for 2025 guys, or I'm looking for 2026. So that's one of the most important things. And the next thing is we recruit by position. One thing I noticed with Go MVP on the profiles that you had shown earlier on those slides is that was the first thing you had. So I just want to say I appreciate that, because I know that's my biggest pet peeve as a coach. Is I don't know what year you graduate, and I'm just moving on down the screen. So I noticed that you had that front and center on yours, and I'm sure that's very helpful for the coaches who are trying to find guys.
Yeah, we want to make things rather, and I appreciate you mentioning that, Coach. We want to make it very methodical. We know exactly what the college coaches want to see, and we want to create a really good pathway for the athlete's champion, right? And what do I mean by that? In many cases, as Coach Cohen has mentioned, I'm absolutely thrilled with the relationship that we've been able to develop, because in many cases he is the athlete's champion. In some cases, it's the high school coach. In some cases, it is the parent. But we want to create the pathway so that the information that now is given on a more micro level, Coach Cohen mentioned before that we handle the macro, he's kind of handling the micro. It's easy for him now to have a more surgical discussion with a college coach about an athlete, because we've sort of paved the way. We've created the content that they want to see in the format they want to see it. It makes for a very effective process for the athlete.
I can tell you that with college coaches' ability to get different, a film on the different kids, let's say, whether it's Huddle or on Twitter or anything else, they do a great job at Go MVP of being efficient, of getting to the point with the film and then the highlights about a kid. And I can tell you, after coaching for a long time, that means a lot. It becomes a deal where they're getting a lot right now. And if it's not very convenient for them, they could be moving on to the next kid. It's kind of like the business world with a resume, right? They say, we want your resume to be a page or less. So I guess what I'm getting at is it's very compact. If you look, if you go out there and look at the pages that they're posting at Go MBB, and I'd like to think we're the same way, it's a lot of information, but it's compact. It's right in front of them. It's easy to get to. I do think that's a big deal, guys. I do.
I do too.
Convenience.
I agree. And I think that what Go MVB does is, and this is just me, as I look through all of these profiles, even my own self, okay, I think you're creating a template. You're creating a template that each one of these college coaches, because you have so many of these good athletes out there, you're creating this template. So for him, when they go to a Go MVB profile of that player, they know exactly where they go. And it, like you talked about, it's easy for them to maneuver through it. They know exactly where to look. And I think that that's what's got to be very, as you pointed out, Andrew, got to be very beneficial for these college coaches to know exactly where to look when they go to that player profile in Go MVB. And it's not only via player, it's via sport. I mean, it's pretty incredible stuff.
Good stuff. I agree. Sorry.
The information that we build for each athlete on the web page, I think is comprehensive, but hopefully it is organized so it's easy to go through. And I appreciate you saying that, Coach Andrew. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. But I'm going to be honest. The reality is that college coaches are not surfing websites of services, at least not in some sort of extremely extraordinary period of time. They're going to use the website our website or any other service's website as a destination if they want to really start to peruse through some specifics. The reality is they're on social media. That's where they're at. And the difference, I think, between our philosophy and some others that are in the is we're not going to try and convince you that the world's sitting on our website. We got a great website, but they're not sitting on the website. I'm going to tell you where they're at. They're on social because that's the latest, the greatest, the most dynamic information, the most up-to-date information is right there on their feed, right? You go to anybody's feed and what are you looking at? You're looking at things that were posted seconds ago to minutes ago to hours ago. You can't find that on somebody's website, right? It's not practical that a website would be updated so quickly. So our position is let's make sure we are serving up the information, the pertinent information, the right information in the place where the coaches are. And then let's make Coach Andrew's job, Coach Cox's job so much easier because we have served up everything the proper way.
Yeah, and the recommendation for, whether a student athlete uses GoMVB or not, that's just a great way to, to put it is that you've got to serve it up so that it's easy for the coach to find you, and that's the same thing for me. Like I said, my thing is like notifications. I'll make sure I turn my notifications on, and if there's coaches or players or teams, what have you, as soon as they're putting their thing out there on Twitter, boom, I'm notified. I get an email because I'm not always on Twitter, but through my notification function, I'm getting an email to my Outlook. Okay. Yeah. And for me, that's, I'm just saying for me, I use the notifications on Twitter and I use it, kind of for only the ones that I'm really interested in. But let's just say if there's somebody and I'm waiting for a player, and obviously I'm in the media here and I'm waiting for a player who's getting ready to announce. Okay, man, as soon as that I am following him and put my notification button on. So the minute he tweets, I get an email and man, I go to that and I'm retweeting or quoting or congratulating them and everything else. And, there are certain tricks to the trade. Like I said, for media, I think for the media guys out there who are watching and I know who you guys are, man, if you're not using that notification button on some of these athletes and teams, then you're missing out.
May I make another point, if you don't mind, Bruce, that I think is really is one of the other things that Coach Andrew brought up earlier. A lot of times, you'll see the athletes that are really trying, right? Remember, high school athlete between the ages of 15 and 18 years old, probably not social media experts, parents probably too busy, probably don't have much of the expertise themselves. A lot of times they think that if they post on social media, the world sees it. The reality is the only people that see what you're posting are those who follow you, at least with respect to Twitter. Some of the other social media platforms have algorithms that pick up certain posts if they're served in a certain way. With respect to Twitter, the only people that see it are the people who follow you. Now, some of those people who follow you may share it, and then your viewability or exposure may expand. Most people aren't sharing. Most people are liking or commenting or something else. You can also tag coaches, and that's another way to get beyond your followers. But what are you going to tag? Thousands of coaches? Pretty much no one is doing that. The way you get in front of these coaches is to make sure the posts you're putting out there are hitting an arena, an audience that's much greater than the followers that you have alone. Coach Andrew indicated that collectively we have over 125,000 followers. It's growing to the tune of about 10,000 per month. And our followers, we never bought a single one. We didn't pay for one. We didn't try and, fake it in any way, shape, or form. We have legitimate athletes, coaches, parents of people that are tied to the college industry. That's who's following us. So every time we post for an athlete, we are legitimately getting them in front of thousands of coaches.
Yeah, I mean, that's just great information. And again, I just want to share the fact that Coach Cohen, Coach Cox, um, you know, their phone numbers on there for reasons that if you have questions, reach out to these gentlemen. If not via phone, via email, there's contact us, sections on the website. Coach Cohen is at getrecruitedconsulting.com. Coach Cox, one of one lifeskills.com.
I posted the Go MVP website earlier on. Did that show?
I believe it did.
You brought it up a couple times.
Yeah, it did.
I said,
Yeah, I tried to post that, just make sure that people can reach out, also get to see all the information that Coach Barone and his staff puts together. So that's gomvb.com, just for a starting point of taking a look at his stuff. But Coach, you're welcome to share any information in that too, right here. Yeah.
Yeah, we went through this is what Frank provided for round one of our Twitter and social media aspect here. But like I said, I'm a big fan. I get notified every single time you tweet, except when I turn my phone off at night, Frank. I don't. There's obviously a method to the madness of
I've been by my wife to make sure I turn mine off because it never stops.
I can only imagine. And that's the thing too, with the notification buttons on, if I don't turn my phone off, man, I mean, this thing is just bing, 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 bing. And it's like, oh my gosh. But there are so many tricks to the whole Twitter game. And there are so many pitfalls as well. That's why, getting in touch with Frank Barone, getting in touch with Andrew Cohen and Craig Cox, just imperative for athletes. If you've got any questions of you and your family, please do. These gentlemen are here to help. And Go MVB, I think the new shining star of public relations for athletes and bringing them the positive light of their accomplishments to coaches and what have you. And what's that number? 85% of Go MVB users get offers, Frank?
Yeah, that's, we just ran through the statistics again, and 85% has been consistent now for the last few years. We're proud of that number. And, again, that's without our direct recruiting. When you throw Coach Andrew Cohen into the mix, that game goes up quite precipitously. So, we're doing some nice things for athletes out there. And at the end of the day, that's what we started this business.
Wow. Fantastic. I'll tell you what, always enjoyable sitting, with this panel, that we've got here, Andrew, Craig, and next week is a very interesting topic. We've got reclassification and post-grad programs for episode 14, guys. What do you think about that one? That should be very interesting, eh?
Absolutely.
For sure.
It's a topic up quite often in our conversations with parents.
Yeah, I would guess. And obviously for you viewers out there, if you've got any show topics, you can definitely get back to the show. You can chat via the YouTube or what have you. Guys, I tell you what, I'm sure that there's going to be a show number 3 relative to Twitter or maybe, social media in general, because things are changing fast and furious now with this new Threads thing that's come on and, Instagram and everything else. So the climate is constantly changing, and, we'll stay right on top of it here at the Get Signed and Succeed podcast. So for Craig Cox, our buddy Frank Barone from Go MVB, and Andrew Cohen from Get Recruited Consulting, I'm Bruce Badgley from Sports Stream Premium. Listen, thanks a lot. Join us next Sunday at 7:30 for episode 14. Thanks a lot. See you next week. So long,
Thanks.
everybody.